I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're listening to Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs, and the sins of the underworld. We're Ireland's top podcast for 2025, and now we've got a new website. So if you want to learn more about crime and criminals, if you want stories, extras, and podcast subscriber specials, go to www.crimeworld.com. More than 60 witnesses had been expected to be called during Jonathan Creswell's murder trial, and it was hoped that some of the hundreds of questions that Katie Simpson's loved ones had about her death and the events that led up to it would have been finally answered publicly. But Creswell's suicide denied them that access to the full truth. Retired Detective Sergeant James Brannigan vividly remembers his own feelings of devastation for Katie's family. You wanted that trial to happen so much, he explained. It was going to put out there in the public domain everything that had happened to Katie. It was going to be her voice. He also believes it would have helped highlight how the initial investigation into Katie's death had been so badly handled. Were you surprised that Johnny Creswell took his own life?
Shocked. Yeah. Just gutted. Just fucking angry, like.
Yeah.
You know, you've gone through all this and it's all about he wanted to control everything. And even he was controlling the court then. He was denying Katie's voice of what actually happened to her. And I wanted that court case to go ahead. I want people to see what happened. And then he...
He didn't, but did he realise that this was the end of the road for him?
I did, yeah, because if you listen to these submissions of the prosecuting barrister on that day, nobody was going home that day thinking that he was innocent, like. Face to face, you can see how he was able to manipulate people. I remember arresting him for offences after that he was arrested for murder, and the female officer, I got out of the car and he was just connecting with the female officer going, listen, he just has it in for me, and touching her leg and eye contact and all, and she just said this was bizarre, you know, and just how he's going to pour me and trying to win her over, and just he's the bad man out there. He has it in for me. He's just, it was poor me. It was just a bizarre, and she'd never seen anything like this, you know, the way he behaved. He
was a strange creature.
He's a bad creature.
Yeah. I'm Nicola Tallant, and this is Groomed, an investigative series from Crime World Presents. Episode 9, Legacy of a Showjumper. There were many witnesses who were willing to drop everything in order to get into that courtroom, including Abby Lyle. Despite the trauma of going through everything Creswell did to her once again, she knew her testimony was important, that it would prove he'd a history of strangling women. While the court case opened on a Tuesday in mid-April, Abby was told it would be several weeks by the time they were ready to hear her evidence. Rachel Lyle was in her office in Belfast when she got a call from her sister on the second day of the trial.
So then the Monday was the jury selection, the Tuesday was the opening, and the Wednesday he was dead. And again on the Wednesday morning I was at my desk and the phone went and it was Abby. And she said, the police have just phoned me, he's dead.
And how did you feel about that?
We basically went through it together and we were like, right, okay. And I think we were both frightened to say, I'm glad. Mm-hmm. But then we both said, I'm glad. And I went outside out there and I sat with her on the phone for ages. And we sort of talked it through. We were like, right, well, it's okay and I was like, you can feel happy that he's dead. And I'm happy that he's dead. And once we said that, it was so much easier.
It was like a monster being dead, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, so it took us a while to kind of get there. But we talked it out for about 20 minutes. I was out there in tears, crying. And then, so I think she was competing the next day in Germany. And this was trying to be chosen for the Olympic team. So she's there. And she's up to Hydo and I'm up to Hydo, and I then go down to Victoria Park again to run, and I am running around thinking the women of this country are safer because of Tanya, Nuala and Abby. And I was crying around Victoria Park, and I texted Tanya and I was like, you're the reason, one of the reasons why everyone's so much safer. And I was ringing Abby, voice noting her going, everyone's safer because of you. And she's like, yes, it's true. It's true. You know, so.
Had he, in between being convicted to serving the sentence, had he ever tried to contact your family or her?
No.
Never?
No. And she hadn't known nothing of him until she saw the Channel 4 ad. And that was awful. Oh. Again, she phoned me. Screaming because she'd seen him on a TV ad. She would always have known, I think, what he was at. I think.
Kept it, watch and breathe.
Yeah. I think if she'd been reading a Horty Press, she would have seen it, but she wouldn't have actively asked or anything.
And then the next thing she hears of him is the murder charge.
Yeah.
Did she know anything about the suspicions around Katie Simpson's suicide?
No, we knew nothing about that. Nothing at all. Mm-hmm. No. I was really shocked that it had all happened so long ago. Yeah. And then when I said to Abby, she was like, I remember he was seeing her when we were splitting up. And I went and looked up the Facebook posts and stuff. And I saw, that it was all a tragic suicide.
Creswell might have been dead, but there were still some very serious loose ends to tie up, not least the sentencing of the 3 women who'd pleaded guilty to a range of offences connected to Katie's death, including withholding information and perverting the course of justice. Almost 2 months to the day after Creswell killed himself, on the 14th of June 2024, Jill Robinson, Hayley Robb and Rose De Montmorency-Wright faced Judge Neil Rafferty at the Crown Court of Derry. Before delivering their sentences, the judge took the time to share some of the victim impact statements he'd received from Katie's family. Now that they'd been denied a murder trial, it was the only chance they got, in an official capacity, to share the impact that her death had on them. Katie's mum, Nolene Simpson, told him about the devastation she felt when told that her beautiful daughter had taken her own life, and how she sat with Katie in the hospital, frustrated and angry, not knowing how to comfort her. The thought that Katie had taken her own life was a source of incredible pain, and if any of the women being sentenced that day had been truthful about what they knew, Nolene would have been able to comfort Katie so much better. She could have told her that they knew what had happened to her, and that, if she'd known the truth, Jonathan Creswell would never have been at Katie's bedside. It was also the only time we heard what Christina Simpson had to say about her sister. She told the judge that since Katie's death, there was a void that would never be filled, and she described her as a loving, feisty, hard-working and loyal. I remember Katie saying that she was looking forward to my 7-year-old daughter starting to ride horses, she wrote. She's riding horses now, and Katie will never get to see that. Katie's other sister, Rebecca, told him that she'd been the most imperfect and perfect sister. She was just as a sister should be. She was the fun aunt. She also told him that she had lost all hope in this world and people. I've become fearful of what the future holds for my girls. My daughter was born 2 weeks after Katie died, and I feel devastated that she will never get to meet her. Katie's younger brother John's statement was short and simple, but no less heartfelt. My name is John Simpson, and I'm a brother of Katie's, he wrote. I miss Katie, horse riding with her, playing football and playing Super Mario. I feel sad. There were statements from her grandparents who spoke of how much they wanted her back, the pride they had in her, and how no one in their family would ever be the same. The shock and sudden loss of Katie is the worst I've ever felt, wrote her grandmother Angela. No one should have to bury their grandchild. Chloe Scott, Katie's childhood friend, also sent in a statement where she told how when she wakes up every morning, Katie was her first thought, and how she was unique, beautiful and fun-loving. Judge Rafferty was also crystal clear in his summation of how Jonathan Creswell was responsible for Katie's death. Mr. Creswell himself created a fiction, pretending to others he had found Katie hanging in a stairwell from a strap, claiming she had taken her own life, he told the court. These defendants did not know the truth about how she had met her death. However, they ascribed to and were complicit in his conspiracy of silence with regards to a number of critical facts, and in Robb and Robinson's case, engaged in positive acts, the result of which was to mislead those trying to get to the truth of what had happened to Katie Simpson. Hayley Robb was sentenced to 2 years in prison for withholding information and a further 2 charges of perverting the course of justice. Her sentence was suspended for 2 years. Jill Robinson was sentenced to 16 months in jail, which was suspended for 2 years, for perverting the course of justice by washing Creswell's clothes. While Rose De Montmorency-Wright received an 8-month sentence, which was also suspended for 2 years for withholding information. Judge Rafferty took the opportunity during the hearing to address some of the evidence that would have been heard at Creswell's murder trial if it had gone ahead. I note that one courageous young woman, Abigail Lyle, has waived her anonymity and was prepared to give evidence about how Creswell had treated her, he said. I pay tribute to her for that because it paints the most compelling picture of Creswell. In her statement, she states that she was in a relationship with Creswell and that during that relationship, she was subjected to coercive control and numerous physical assaults. Of particular note, Creswell subjected her to choking and strangulation. The judge went on to explain how non-fatal strangulation is now a standalone criminal offence, as is coercive control. As the understanding of these offences has become better understood, he said, the foreshadowing of the death of Katie Simpson is chilling. Statistically, a male who engages in an attack involving non-fatal strangulation is 800% more likely to kill a partner in that relationship. He also mentioned other witness statements that had been submitted for the murder trial, which described how Creswell behaved towards women, and particularly young women working in the equestrian industry. Many of those witnesses witnessed incidents of verbally abusive and frankly vile comments made to Katie and other young women, he said. These comments were often in the context of sexualised language. Chloe Scott's statement detailed how Creswell had started grooming Katie from when she was about 10 years old and how he came to dominate her. According to several other witnesses, this grooming continued through her teens. The detail and contents of these statements, the judge said, create an irresistible conclusion that Jonathan Creswell was a skilled and predatory abuser who regarded women under his influence as simply there to be used and abused for his own ends, including his sexual gratification. He also said it was clear that Creswell had an established pattern when it came to abusing young women. Using Hayley Robb's experience, the judge told how she'd been a young girl, interested in horses, and after falling under Creswell's influence, it became a sexual relationship, which then involved coercive control and physical violence. He revealed how Hayley was once hospitalised after being assaulted by Creswell, which caused a clot on her chest. And he told how the police investigation into Katie's death found that Jill Robinson had also been physically attacked by Creswell, although she repeatedly denied the fact to PSNI officers. It is a feature of such violence that often a victim will deny it, said the judge, and this is demonstrated in relation to this defendant. The full extent of Creswell's extraordinary control over Jill Robinson was laid bare in the Sky documentary Death of a Showjumper, when they managed to persuade her to do an extensive on-camera interview about their relationship. It was an unsettling and thoroughly depressing portrait of a dysfunctional union, one that lasted long after they broke up. We had this unit, 5 women, 1 man, she told them. It was completely normal for the horsey industry. It's very male-dominated. We were all working together as a unit, Christina, Katie, Hayley, Rose and myself. But anyone watching could tell there was nothing normal about the control Creswell exerted over his unit. If Johnny wanted you to do something, you were so used to rushing and doing it, Jill said. You would have dropped everything to just run and do it. You felt this need to do things for him. He really praised you if you did something well. On the other hand, if you did something, if there was a lapse in judgment with an animal, he could have equally made you feel like shit. Jill freely admitted that she took everything Creswell said as gospel. It was, I suppose, kind of cult-like, where everything he said was the be-all and end-all. And in a parting shot, she insisted it wasn't just Creswell's strange unit of women that he had wrapped around his little finger. Not just girls or younger women, she claimed, but like high-powered businessmen who were smart and intelligent men, he had them eating out of the palm of his hand, and they would have done anything for him. Abby Lyle also featured heavily in the Sky documentary, and when pressed on what she thought made this monster tick, she said he had a deep-seated hatred of women. "We were all the same, all bad, all whores," she said. "I don't know where it came from. I don't care. I don't want to know." Things have since changed in the North when it comes to legislating for the kind of abuse that Creswell dealt out. The Domestic Abuse and Civil Proceedings Act of 2021 was enacted on the 21st of February 2022, making coercive and controlling behaviour, including non-physical psychological abuse, a criminal offence. It covers a range of abusive behaviours, from emotional and physical to economic and technological, involving a partner, an ex-partner or a close family member. In her work as a barrister, Rachel Lyle has had a front row seat to witness what impact the new legislation has had.
I think there's a massive difference in how individual police officers deal with it, and I still see that now. I've been doing this job for 23 years, and when I started, domestic violence was kind of laughed at.
Yeah.
And over the years, it's become much more, people pay attention to it. But whenever I was watching one of the bails, the senior counsel, the big bail application, senior counsel for Creswell referred to what happened to Abby as a domestic.
I noticed that.
And I was really annoyed about that. But the judge, John O'Hara, said yes, but he would have got a lot more for that now. So John O'Hara was straight in there, but I was really annoyed.
Yeah, maybe. How did you think she was? So obviously she was shunned by the circle
Yeah.
around Creswell. In general, did you sense that she was believed?
I do, yeah. I think as well, because she came out and did so much with Women's Aid, and there were articles and stuff about her, and she was so brave speaking out. I think she was really well thought of. And I even know now that when people went and looked into, I'm in this WhatsApp group with several hundred Irish runners, and somebody posted the video, right, of my life in the group. And some of the others came in and went, that's Rachel's sister. And a guy hadn't noticed that, and he wrote, "But have you seen her backstory? It's really intense." And I went, "It is intense." So people have gone and Googled her and seen that. And, there's a lot of respect.
She's had to do that for herself, though. Not everybody's capable of
No,
speaking out like that.
and that's right. And that's because of Women's Aid and all of the help she got, and the help from Nuala and Women's Aid throughout. And then she had counselling when she was in England, because she had to go to England to get away from him. But then she got into the dressage, and there's not really a market for it here. So what she does is so specialised. But she was really brave to do it back then because it wasn't done.
Yeah.
And it's only in the last sort of Me Too era, that you've had people speaking out. And now we have this coercive control legislation. I think we might have been last to get it. But, I still suffer with cases that I do where you've a massive disconnect with police officers on the ground who take an incident of harassment and another one and don't join them up and just say, "Well, that's all you can do and that's all you can do." That still happens now. So it's difficult. But I think the police investigation was shocking from the start, from what I know, from what I've been told and what I've seen on various things. I think whoever decided not to investigate that has to be looked at.
Rachel is not the only person who believes the PSNI's initial investigation into Katie's death needed to be examined. The Police Ombudsman commissioned a report, and on the 12th of November 2024, they published their findings. In a statement, they said the first investigation was flawed and it failed Katie Simpson's family. One of the failings highlighted was the willingness to believe Jonathan Creswell's account of how he'd found Katie at their house after she tried to hang herself. A follow-up statement by Assistant Chief Constable Davy Beck echoed the mistakes that had been done by his force. "I acknowledge that there were shortcomings in various stages of the investigation into Katie's death," he said, "and I unreservedly apologise for this. It's clear that we were not rigorous enough in our pursuit of all potential lines of inquiry and did not act quickly enough in responding to some of the concerns that were raised around Katie's death. We relied too much on the lack of any presenting medical evidence around what had happened to Katie when she was first admitted to hospital, and on the forensic post-mortem that was conducted on August 11th, 2020. He also acknowledged their failure to identify Creswell's previous conviction for domestic abuse. We acknowledge this and reaffirm our position that we must and will do better moving forward, said the Assistant Chief Constable. As a result of these shortcomings, the Police Ombudsman recommended misconduct proceedings in relation to 6 officers. However, it is important to note that this is less about individual officers' actions and more about our organisation not getting things right from the outset. During and since the investigation by the Police Ombudsman, at least 5 officers involved in that first investigation have retired. As of now, there has been still no inquest into Katie Simpson's death. The latest hearing was in mid-September, when the Coroner's Court was told that the Sky documentary included interviews that were potentially relevant. So far, 352 police files have to be examined, including up to 29,000 pages, made up of 44 police reports, 77 transmission files, 165 exhibits, 237 statements, and 53 interview files. The coroner's team is also working through 781 files supplied by the Police Ombudsman, and the State Pathologist has also been asked to supply any relevant material, given the potential importance of pathology material. James Brannigan quit the PSNI in April 2025. There's no doubt the resistance he encountered from within the force when trying to launch a new investigation into Katie's death had a profound effect on him. But while he may be now retired from the PSNI, he's still determined to help families of women who have died or disappeared in suspicious circumstances. He calls them hidden homicides, and in June 2025 he launched a charity to help people whose loved ones' deaths were officially classified as a suicide, accident or disappearance, but where serious concerns and unanswered questions still linger. He's named the charity in honour of Katie Simpson, and at his first press conference, he appeared with her 2 aunts, Paula Mullen and Colleen McConville, by his side. The Katie Trust, he told reporters, will assist families across Ireland, whether the death happened at home or abroad, and will act on behalf of the family to seek truth, transparency and, where necessary, justice. In the years since Katie's murder, questions have also been raised about the equestrian world in Ireland and the treatment of young women and girls who work in it. There is a serious lack of safeguarding in the equine sector, Brannigan has explained. You want to take your child to swimming, soccer, rugby or Gaelic, there's safeguarding around that child. The institutions have to have safeguarding measures in place. But I could set up an equestrian school tomorrow and you don't need any safeguarding whatsoever. Perpetrators know it's an easy place to go because younger girls especially will do anything to have contact with horses. It's an obsession for them. A man like Jonathan Creswell knew exactly how to harness and abuse the simple and innocent obsessions of young girls. He used flattery and his own equestrian talents to lure them in, and once caught, he was able to manipulate their insecurities and coerce them into doing whatever he wanted. Many of us, thankfully, will never fully understand how that kind of malicious control works, how it can corrode someone's personality down to a point where they can barely recognise themselves anymore. But we know it happens all the time. Like Tanya Fowles and dozens of other journalists, I was at the sentence hearing for Jill Robinson, Hayley Robb and Rose De Montmorency-Wright in June 2024, and I couldn't help but stare in fascination at these 3 attractive and bright women who all had promising careers but who were all in thrall to Jonathan Creswell. Creswell, a disgusting, boorish misogynist, capable of intense cruelty and abuse, who beat Katie Simpson so severely that she died of her injuries. They might not have known he was responsible for their friend's murder, but they believed he'd given her a hiding and they were willing to lie for him. How did he instill that kind of blind loyalty? As well as shining a light on the shortcomings of the PSNI, Katie Simpson's death revealed so much about how profoundly abusive men can operate in plain sight. The lessons to be learned from how Creswell got away with what he did for so long cannot be underestimated. Shortly after the day Jill, Hayley and Rose were sentenced in 2024, Tanya Fowles spoke to me again to go through how they had ended up in front of a judge. Tanya is from that world. She lives close to that community, and she saw firsthand the effects Creswell had on his unit of women. So perhaps it's fitting we give her the final word.
I suppose there is trauma there. Yeah, I would be traumatised. I can still remember Katie, and I can still hear that awful mischievous giggle that used to set me off even when I was really annoyed about something. And the fact that 21 and lying in a cold grave in her riding gear, and that child's life snuffed out, and the cover-up and the defence of the indefendable. It's very, very hard to balance it in your head, to be honest. But this is where I said I've clashed. I've got the personal side of it and I've got the work side of it, and they really did collide head on. The work side of it, that's no problem. You grit your teeth and you get on with it. Frustrating, yeah. Personal side of it has been more difficult because I have had times where I've just had to say no, can't talk about Katie today, or the case. I think it would have been maybe better if Johnny had been convicted. I think I would have felt better. But it's just all left just sort of in limbo. And the awful, awful investigation and failures. I think I'd feel better if I could get accountability. That would probably help a lot. But we're a long way off that. But it is very hard thinking about her gone. You know, such a lovely, lovely girl. And so talented as well. But all you can do is keep digging on until you get answers, and they are there. We'll get them eventually, but it has been tough.
You've been listening to Groomed, a Crime World Presents limited series, edited and presented by me, Nicola Tallant. Written by Jane Finnegan. Contributor and researcher Tanya Fowles. The series producer is Ian Malini. Nasa Kumaski is assistant producer.